Thank you for joining us today at American Bird Conservancy's webinar on bird collisions in buildings. Speaking today will be Dr. Christine Shepard, American Bird Conservancy's Director of our Collisions Program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Steve. American Bird Conservancy addresses conservation at many levels. The Bird Collisions Program is part of our program to eliminate threats, to tackle threats to birds that impact many species in many countries across the board. One of the first things I do when I speak about bird collisions, because usually I'm talking to architects and city planners and so forth, is to talk a bit about why birds are important. Many people feel that birds have intrinsic value. Birds obviously have significant cultural value. They represent things like freedom and peace, fidelity and happiness. But birds also provide very important ecological services. They are seed dispersers. They consume seeds from weeds and other invasive kinds of plants. Birds consume enormous numbers of insects, many times their body weight in a short period of time. So every bird that we lose to collisions is a bird that might have contributed something positive to human life. Bird watching has a major economic impact. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry in the U.S. alone. So for bottom line arguments, birds also have an important economic they're an important economic resource. Sorry about that. So I started working with ABC about 2.5 years ago. And at the time I thought that I knew a lot about what causes bird collisions. And when I started looking in detail at the resources that were available, the literature that was available, I discovered that there were many things that I did not know, and that quite a bit of the conventional wisdom was really only that. Some of it was informed judgment, some of it was misunderstanding of resources. So I started by doing a thorough review of everything that we knew about collisions. And I'll run through that briefly for you. One of the misconceptions about this problem is the thought that people can see glass and birds can't. People can't see glass any better than birds can. What people can do is learn signals that show them that glass is there. So you'll often see in public buildings and so forth, glass that's marked to keep people from running into glass doors, glass walls. Many people every year are injured by running into glass. I used to work at the Bronx Zoo. There we know that birds that are resident in an area can learn about glass, especially if you teach them about it ahead of time. So after a couple of days in an exhibit where the glass has been marked, birds will avoid the glass even when it is very clean. Although in some circumstances, more permanent markings are required. You probably can't tell whether this is a picture of trees, a picture of trees seen through glass, or the reflection of trees in mirrored glass. But when I show you this, you'll know that glass is somewhere involved. The mullion tells you that. This little crack here also tells you that there is glass involved in this image. In fact, this is the reflection of trees in a piece of mirrored glass. This is the reflection of trees in a piece of transparent glass. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that you can actually see through the glass. But in most of this area, the reflection actually eliminates the view of anything on the interior. This is very important because many proposed solutions for stopping birds from hitting glass involve putting something on the inside of a glass surface. Sometimes this can work, but fairly frequently it does not work because the reflection overwhelms the view of whatever's inside. Birds take this sort of a scene very literally. Each of these trees seems like something that they could fly to. We notice the overhang, the boardwalk, the joins between the panes of glass, and that tells us that this very realistic image here is actually a reflection. Another facet of bird collisions relates to the fact that birds are very agile. This is a swallow turning sideways to fly between a very narrow gap between two barn doors. On the ABC website, you can find a link to a video of a goshawk flying very swiftly through an incredibly complex environment of branches and tree limbs and so forth, making turns after turn to avoid obstacles. I've seen many birds fly into these trees. They don't pause outside the tree to determine where they should go next. They really zoom in there. Unfortunately, there are many similar spaces in buildings that are blocked with glass. So a bird that tries to dart through some of these spaces collides with the glass and is injured. Another obvious problem with glass is when birds see things that they would like to fly to through glass. This is an atrium on 42nd Street in Manhattan. There are many more trees in this atrium than there are on the entire block that this building is on. Additionally, birds may try to fly through more than one pane of glass to reach something on the other side of a building. So what birds can see through glass. Another circumstance here, outside. Birds may try to fly towards this habitat or from this habitat to something behind the viewer here. And birds often fly down the path of least resistance, as do people. So because many pathways lead to glass, that essentially is channeling birds towards something that's dangerous. The same piece of glass can appear to be very different at different times of day or different times of year. So you have to really look at a piece of glass if you want to know why it's causing a problem. So reflection, see-through, what we call a passage effect. Light complicates this matter in a number of different ways. Light pollution is an additional problem. The aspect of light that people are probably most familiar with is the circumstance of a powerful beam of light. This is a picture of the 9/11 memorial in Manhattan. Each of the white dots you see on the screen is a bird that has apparently become trapped in the beam of light. Birds show a behavior in strong beams of light. They are attracted and then they circle in the beam. And this can go on for hours. In the case of the 9/11 memorial, volunteers from the New York City Audubon Society monitor the memorial all night. When birds build up in the light beam, they make a phone call, the lights are turned off, the birds are released, then they're turned back on again. But this is something that you can see in many cities, advertising searchlights and so forth. General light pollution is more and more seeming to be a somewhat different problem. Birds, again, are attracted to light. Less powerful lights attract birds that are coming down towards the end of a migratory session, probably causing more of them to be within the city than might otherwise land there. Ironically, birds in these areas probably are least likely to land in parkland areas, which are not as brightly lit as cities. When these birds start to try to forage in the morning, they face glass on every side. And this is one of the reasons that many collisions occur during the day, even though light is involved in the birds being near the glass. A third aspect of light, which is becoming more and more interesting, is the fact that birds respond differently to different light colors. Dim blue light is actually needed for birds to migrate at night because blue light is part of one of their magnetic senses. This is why weather can interact with light to make things even more dangerous. When fog is there, the birds don't have the light cue, and because they don't have the light cue, they also don't have the magnetic cue. And so many large collision incidents are related to fog at night. There have been experiments demonstrating the differential response of birds to light in laboratories. Red light, long wavelengths seem to confuse birds, whereas blue and green light does not confuse birds or attract birds. There have been field studies that have shown similar things, that birds are attracted to white and red light, not to blue light, not very much to green light. So this is a picture of an oil platform in the North Sea that has been relamped with green light, which has essentially eliminated the problem of birds circling these platforms at night and incurring mortality. The impact of collisions on birds is large. Collisions of birds with buildings is one of the most significant, if not the most significant, causes of mortality for birds. The estimate that was made by Dr. Dan Clem in 2006 was 100 million to a billion. I have a billion here because the amount of glass in the environment has steadily increased since 2006. And that estimate was based on data from homes. It did not include the mortality numbers that have been calculated for cities. So at this point, we feel that the 1 billion birds in the U.S. per year is more realistic than the low end of that number. So what is ABC doing about this? And basically, what am I doing about this? What I first started to do, as I mentioned before, was find out what we really know about collisions and try to make that as available as possible to as many people as possible. One of the first things we did was to start the ABC Collisions listserv. Anybody is welcome to join this listserv that has an interest. It is primarily an information resource. It's not a chat room, but we sometimes do have very interesting discussions about new technologies or questions that many people have had about a particular aspect of collisions. But it has allowed people working on this issue really around the globe to be able to get together and exchange information. We also created a flyer, which is downloadable from the ABC website, which looks at basically quick, easy, cheap ways for home dwellers to do something about windows that are killing birds. These are generally temporary solutions, but they can be very effective. We're trying to get this information out to as many people as we possibly can. Different groups are more than welcome to download and distribute this. There's actually a space at the back. If your organization would like to download this and add their logo on the back next to ours, that's something that we're very happy to have you do. We've developed a continuing education class for architects. Every year, architects are required to take a certain number of classes in order to remain certified. So by becoming a registered provider of the American Institute for Architects, we have been able to develop several classes that talk about bird collisions and solutions for new construction, for retrofits, and that can address new developments. This class has been given at a number of architectural firms. We are able to give it at conferences. So we are able to try to address the professionals that are building new buildings. We've also created a summary of the information that is out there on collisions. Bird-friendly building design was originally based on New York City Audubon's bird-safe building guidelines. Because they are a city-based organization, they asked ABC to develop a national program to distribute this information. Excuse me. I started the program by trying to work with the resources and information that were available. ABC started by developing a collisions listserv. This is an effort to link everyone interested in the collision issue, and there are people from several continents, many countries, and in lots of occupations that belong to the listserv. People are welcome to join the listserv. Contact me if you're interested. It's primarily an information resource so that when something new happens, everybody can find out about it. We also do have discussions of current topics, especially if there's something coming up that's controversial. We created this flyer, which is downloadable from the ABC website. It lists sort of quick, easy, cheap ways for homeowners to treat windows that are causing bird collision problems. This is also downloadable from our website. We welcome anybody that wants to make copies, to distribute it. If your organization wants to, you can add your logo to ours on the back and distribute it. We hope to get this into as many hands as possible. We also developed a continuing education class for architects. Every year, architects have to take classes in order to remain certified. So ABC is now a provider for the American Institute of Architects continuing education program. We have several different classes that can be given face-to-face or as a webinar. It's been given at architecture firms and conferences, and we also have a train-the-trainer program. So a couple of times a year, will offer to do the class for people who are interested in becoming teachers in their area, so that we can reach more people. Finally, New York City Audubon had developed a document called Bird Safe Building Guidelines. Because they are a city-based program, they asked American Bird Conservancy if we would take over the program to develop a national distribution program and to update the original document to reflect changes that had happened, and we have also expanded the document to include a review of the literature and as many examples as we could find of bird-friendly buildings to inspire architects to realize that bird-friendly design is not a limitation. It's just simply one more factor to be taken into account when a design is being developed. The Bird Collisions program is in ABC's policy department, and one of the strategies that we pursue is trying to get legislation passed at city, state, federal levels that might mandate bird-friendly design. San Francisco was the first place that we started to try to do this for collisions. We partnered early on with the Golden Gate Audubon Society, talked to San Francisco's planning department. And at about the time that I started this position, San Francisco's planning department had become very interested in the issue, and ABC was invited out to help present to the San Francisco planning commissioners. The planning commissioners instructed the department to develop language for a possible ordinance, and ABC and Golden Gate worked with the planning department for about a year and a half to help create the language and then to help get this passed. It was signed into law by the mayor in September after having been adopted by the planning commissioners in July. So this is very exciting, and we're looking forward to not just seeing that other cities are excited and also want to use San Francisco's role as a model, but we've discovered that there has already been a response to this on the part of manufacturers of glass and window film. Suddenly they're starting to see that there may be a widening market for bird-friendly products, and this is another one of ABC's goals. So it was exciting to see that there was a very quick response as soon as San Francisco adopted this policy. Architects, I think, when they hear bird-friendly architecture, imagine something like this, a windowless warehouse, and it's understandably depressing. I'm not going to give you my entire slideshow of bird-friendly buildings, but I am going to show you a few. Here's an example of a very easy strategy. This building was not constructed with birds in mind, but the design has incorporated obviously many louvers. This reduces the amount of visible glass. It allows the possibility of covering problem areas entirely. This is a very straightforward solution. It's a very handsome building. External shades are a wonderful solution because, again, they're very much controllable for particular areas of the building. This hotel in Mexico City has used it to make a sort of wonderful color statement as much as anything else. This is a U.S. Census building. This is a federal building. Again, not designed for birds, but with great bird-friendly concept. This is a brise soleil. This network is designed to control the amount of sunlight and heat that comes into the building. It's extremely attractive. People can see out very well. The building has won numerous awards. So it's very possible to do good bird-friendly construction without having to resort to unusual methods. In addition to trying to put together existing information, ABC is also trying to develop new information. We're trying to fill in the blanks where more information is needed. We have a research program that's based at the Powder Mill Banding Station in Pennsylvania. This is a program that I had started before I came to ABC. It was based on a protocol developed in Austria when transparent plexiglass noise barriers erected on highways instantly caused high levels of bird death. They developed this, what they call a tunnel. So this is a 30-foot long wooden structure. Birds that are banded by the banding program come out and are placed into the tunnel. At the far end of the tunnel, they're presented with two choices of trying to get out of the tunnel. One, a pane of transparent glass, which they do not see because birds can't see glass and neither can people. And then whatever we're testing, and we swap these back and forth and do them at different times of day. The basis of this study is the belief that the level of threat posed by a material can be quantified. And this is something that's very, very important because by being able to quantify materials, we are able to have a much better dialogue with architects. The German study showed very early on that it is possible to deter most strikes while covering less than 10% of the glass surface. Now, this is huge. It is understandable that people reject the idea of having to cover their windows or have no windows. But to cover 10% of your windows in order to protect birds is a relatively reasonable request. Another piece of information that has come from this research, and it confirms information that was discovered by Dr. Dan Clem, who has studied collisions at Muhlenberg College. The most frequently killed birds, the most frequent victims of collisions are night-flying migrant warblers. They're little birds. So to protect your windows, to protect birds against your windows, you need to be able to protect these little birds. And what we found is that the majority of birds will not try to fly between horizontal lines less than 2 inches apart, between vertical lines that are less than about 4 inches apart. Now, the first question that sort of springs to mind here is, okay, what about diagonal lines? These are questions that we are still working on. But we do have some relatively simple guidelines that can help you design glass that is not going to be a threat to birds. When I started this project, I was working in a zoo where glass handrails are one of the problems that we contend with all the time in bird exhibits. As I joined ABC, I realized that most collisions happen on buildings, and that we needed to modify the experimental protocol in order to model glass on buildings. Freestanding glass, like a handrail, tends to have relatively equal light levels on both sides of the glass, whereas glass on buildings, there can be a 1,000-fold difference between the light level on the inside of the building and the light level on the outside of the building. So we mounted a background on the back of the glass to reduce the amount of light there. We had to use a pattern on the background. If you look closely, you'll see that you can actually see the mist net that's mounted in the tunnel to prevent birds from actually hitting the glass here. By being able to quantify threat levels of glass, we were able to come up with a strategy to develop a pilot credit that could fit into the Green Building Council's LEED system, and the LEED pilot credit was adopted last fall. It's a pilot credit. Whether it becomes part of the permanent system depends upon whether or not it actually comes into use. But in fact, it has already been awarded, and a number of buildings are working with it right now. So I think that it may well become part of the permanent LEED system. And again, this is causing manufacturers to realize that there is a market for bird-friendly products. In looking at this comparison, the San Francisco standard applies specifically to the lowest 60 feet of a facade facing a green area or a water feature. The LEED pilot credit is somewhat stricter. It covers all of the glass, and the lowest 3 stories and the first story above any green roof are counted as being more dangerous. So glass there is counted at a double level. There's a scale here. A building that was 100% glass would score 100. A building that had no glass at all would score 0. In order to get the LEED credit, the score for the building has to be 15 or less. This means, as a shorthand, that 7.5% of the building could be untreated glass on the lower floor, or 15% of the surface area of the building could be untreated glass if it's above the lowest 3 floors. However, if you use glass that is modified with a pattern on the glass or something in front of the glass, louvers, shades, that you can have a much wider glass area on the same building. So this is something that's been very exciting, and we're looking forward to working with more architects on this and explaining this to more people. Lights Out programs are another part of this program, something that we hope to do more with in the next couple of years. If you look at this map, you can see that there are quite a few Lights Out programs. They tend to be clustered, and that there are some obvious areas where Lights Out programs could be added and we think should be added. ABC is very willing to work with local organizations to help create Lights Out programs. And please contact me if this is something that you might be interested in. This is the end of the presentation today. I'm very happy to answer questions. Please contact me if you would like to talk about something specific, or if you think I can help you with a project that you're trying to do. Thanks for listening.